I'm Elena, 62 years old, widowed. I raised one son, Daniel, mostly by myself after cancer. Took my husband early. I worked nights, skipped vacations, and made casseroles stretch 3 days when money got tight. But I never once complained because I believed in family. I believed in showing up, even when life didn't make room for you. Especially then. So when I knocked on Daniel's door that morning, holding a tin of his favorite snickerdoodles, I didn't expect fanfare. I just expected love, or at least a seat at the table. He opened the door wearing that same shy smile from when he was 10. Mom. He hugged me fast, barely more than a pat. Come in. He turned and walked inside. I stood there for a second, cookie tin sweating in my hands. Then followed. The house sparkled, white lights wrapped around everything. A Christmas tree taller than anything we ever had, covered in glass ornaments that looked like they belonged in a catalog. Stockings hung from the mantel, Daniel, Emily, and even their dog, Pepper. But not mine. My eyes drifted to the photo wall. Ski trips, winery weekends, matching holiday sweaters. All of Emily's family, not one picture of me, not even a school photo. I tried to swallow the knot in my throat, but it sat heavy. I sat down on the same couch I helped them buy when they were just starting out. The one I skipped fixing my roof for. My cardigan clung to me like a reminder I didn't belong here anymore. Emily walked in then, glossy hair, high heels clicking on the hardwood like punctuation. Her smile was polite, practiced. Hi, Elena. Thanks for stopping by. She didn't touch the cookies, didn't even glance at them. I asked what time I should come over on Christmas Day. Her lips twitched. Actually, we're doing something small this year. Just us and my parents. It's simpler that way. I blinked. Just you and your parents? She nodded like it was nothing. It's just easier, without extra people. Extra people. I could feel my ears burning. I looked at Daniel. He didn't meet my eyes. It's just 1 year, Mom. One Christmas. But it wasn't. It never island. Once they start excluding you, it becomes a habit. It becomes the new normal. Emily's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, smiled to herself, then said something that clung to my ribs like ice. Finally, peace. I stood, my fingers curled around the handle of the cookie tin like it was the only thing keeping me steady. I said I understood. I didn't, but I wasn't going to beg. Not in front of her, not in front of him. I walked to the door and stepped out into the December cold, the warmth of that house, never touching me once. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands ached from gripping the steering wheel. The heater in my old car wheezed out cold air, same as the one in my house. I stepped inside, and the chill met me like a slap. The kind that doesn't bruise, but lingers anyway. I left the cookies untouched on the counter, sat at the table, and stared at nothing. Dinner was 2 eggs and toast. I didn't even bother with a plate. I ate standing up, watching the tiny kitchen window fog with my breath. The silence was louder than Emily's voice had been. I used to love coming home. Now even this house felt smaller, colder, like it had taken on the shape of my loneliness. I set the kettle on and pulled my cardigan tight, trying not to think too much, trying not to feel too much. That's when I saw it. A large box on the floor, wrapped in silver with a red bow I'd tied myself. I froze. The espresso machine. The one Emily had fawned over in that store, eyes wide like a child. I remembered how she said good coffee was a necessity, not a luxury. I'd smiled and said nothing, then saved every leftover dollar for 2 weeks, just to get it. I'd wanted to see her face light up when she opened it. I'd wanted to feel like part of something. I bent down, ran my hand over the smooth packaging. Then I reached for my phone. I didn't even know why, but something in me told me to look. Maybe it was a hunch. Maybe it was just pain looking for proof. I opened Instagram and there it was. A story posted just an hour ago. Emily's manicured hands were tying the very same bow I had fixed the night before. Caption: "From us to the best parents ever." My heart didn't stop. It clenched. Not a word about me. Not a thank you. Not even a mention. Just repackaged generosity, rebranded love. My gift. My money. My hope. Scrubbed clean of my name like I never mattered. The tea kettle whistled, but I didn't move. I just stood there, phone in one hand, breath stuck in my chest. I should have cried. A year ago, I would have. But something else took over. Not anger, not heartbreak. Something older. Something quieter. A knowing. I wasn't part of their life. I was just a resource. A name they borrowed when they needed help, then erased when it was time to celebrate. I set the phone down, turned off the kettle, stared out the window as night pressed in on the glass. And that's when it hit me. I had one thing left that they hadn't taken. My choice. My voice. And I was done letting them write me out of a story I built from scratch. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed with the lights off, the glow of the street lamp bleeding through the blinds like moonlight that had lost its warmth. My hands rested over my chest. Still, like I was trying to hold something broken in place. At some point, I stopped feeling sad. What settled in me instead was clarity. Cold, clean, sharp around the edges. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. I pulled on an old sweater and walked to the filing cabinet tucked in the corner of the living room. The metal drawer groaned as it opened, like it was tired of holding secrets. Inside were years of paper I never wanted to revisit. Statements, bank slips, check copies, all the proof of how I'd funded their dream home. Every month, $3,000 is gone before I can blink. Always with a promise from Daniel that he'd pay me back. One day, I laid them all out on the table like puzzle pieces, and I suddenly saw clearly. The numbers didn't lie. I'd poured over $180,000 into a life that didn't include me. I used to think love was sacrifice. That you gave until it hurt, and then gave a little more. But what happens when the giving never stops, and the thanks never come? I picked up the phone and dialed the credit union. My voice didn't shake. Cascade Credit Union. How can I help you today? I gave my name, my account number, and asked to cancel the automatic mortgage payment. The woman on the other end hesitated. Just to confirm, this is the joint account for the home at 219 Brookside Lane? Yes. Cancel it, I said. Effective today. There was a pause. Then, of course, the payment has been canceled, effective immediately. Do you need a confirmation number? Number I'll remember. And I would. Not the number. The moment. The moment I chose myself. I hung up and stared at the papers for a long second. Then I stood, walked to the fireplace, and opened the iron gate. One by one, I fed them in. The December air crept through the cracks in the window, but the fire grew hot, almost hungry. I watched ink blur, curl, vanish. January. February. March. 5 years of silence burned down to ash, in minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just watched, my arms crossed over my chest, steady for the first time in years. When the last page turned black, I poured myself a glass of the wine I'd been saving for Christmas. I sat in my chair, the fire warming my skin, the quiet thick with something new. Not loneliness, not bitterness, something like peace. They built their life on my back, and now I'd stopped carrying it. The phone rang just after lunch. I let it buzz twice before I picked up. Emily's voice came through sugary sweet, like nothing had ever happened. Elena, can you do me a favor? My parents just landed early. Can you pick them up from the airport? I paused, took a slow sip of tea, and said, sure. No hesitation. Just, sure. She sounded relieved, then immediately slipped in a warning. Could you wear something decent? They notice things like that. I smiled at the beige walls of my kitchen. Of course, I said. I hung up and walked to the stove. I didn't grab my coat. I didn't reach for my keys. I pulled out a pan, buttered 2 thick slices of bread, and made myself a grilled cheese sandwich. The good kind, with sharp cheddar that melts slowly. I poured a glass of sweet tea, the kind she once said was too sweet for her taste, and sat by the window with the December wind tapping on the glass like applause. The first bite tasted like rebellion. I ate slowly, deliberately. My phone started buzzing halfway through. First Emily, then Daniel, then a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened Instagram, and there it was. A story from Emily, posted just 5 minutes ago. A photo of 2 expensive suitcases sitting at baggage claim. The caption read, "Some people just can't handle basic responsibilities." I actually laughed. A real one. Not bitter, not hurt. Just a short, sharp sound that came from somewhere deep in my chest. I took another bite and chewed slowly. I was home, in my old sweater, on my old chair, eating lunch. Her parents could wait. Another call came in. This time, I hit speaker and set the phone down on the table. Emily's voice exploded into the room. "Elena, where are you? They've been waiting almost 2 hours." I took another sip of tea and said calmly, "I'm home." She went silent for a second. "You're what?" "Home, eating lunch," she gasped. "Are you out of your mind?" I smiled. Not that she could see it. "You told me to wear something decent, so I figured I'd sit this one out." Her breath caught. "You're humiliating them." I leaned back in my chair and said softly, "Perfect." The call ended with a click. I wiped my hands on a napkin and looked out the window. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely at ease. No racing heart, no shaky hands, just grilled cheese, sweet tea, and the kind of quiet that feels earned. Let them wait. The night was cold, but still. I parked 2 houses down from theirs, took a slow breath, and reached for the leather folder sitting in the passenger seat. 5 years of bank records, canceled checks, and receipts. It felt heavier than it looked. I smoothed the front of my black dress, clipped on the pearl earrings my husband gave me, and whispered softly to the air around me, "Watch this." The house glittered with white lights like a storefront window. Music floated through the walls, soft jazz, elegant. Laughter echoed out of the open windows. I walked up the steps, heels clicking sharply against the concrete, and rang the bell. A pause, then the door opened. Emily stood there, perfectly poised, dressed tight, hair curled. Her smile faltered the second she saw me. "Elena," she hissed, stepping halfway out the door. "What are you doing here?" I held her gaze and smiled, slow and steady. "It's Christmas, Emily. You invited me for dessert, remember?" Her eyes darted behind her like she was checking for witnesses. "This is not a good time." "Then it's the perfect time," I said, stepping past her and into the house before she could stop me. The room fell quiet. Dozens of faces turned toward me. Women in cocktail dresses, men in press suits. The dining table stretched long and glimmering, set with crystal, candles, and gold-rimmed plates. Daniel stood near the bar. He looked like someone had knocked the breath out of him. "Mom?" "Hi, sweetheart," I said, walking toward the table. "You look surprised." Emily followed closely, her voice low and tight. "You need to leave." I turned to her, smiling for the audience. "Why would I leave? Family is everything, right? That's what you posted." Gasps. A few chuckles. I laid the folder gently in the center of the table. The thud it made felt like a gavel. "What's that?" someone asked. I opened it slowly, deliberately, and began laying out the documents like I was presenting evidence in court. Bank transfers, mortgage receipts, check images, line after line of $3,000 debits from my account. Month after month. Year after year. That's $180,000, I said clearly. That's how much I've paid for this house. For this life. For this curated experience. You all seem to enjoy it so much. Emily lunged forward, trying to gather the papers, but I stepped back. I'm not finished. I pulled out one final page. A screenshot. Her message to a friend. ATM. Mommy strikes again. She actually thinks we like her. The silence was absolute. Daniel looked pale. Emily's face crumbled. I tucked the page back into the folder, straightened my shoulders, and looked around the room. Enjoy the meal. It's the last one I'll ever pay for. Then I turned, walked out, and let the door close behind me like the end of a chapter. I didn't stay to see the rest. I didn't need to. I could already hear it unraveling behind me as the door closed. Voices rising. Guests murmuring. One woman's voice cut through the noise. Emily, you still owe me that $500 from August. Then another chimed in. Actually, me too. You borrowed for that Napa trip, remember? I walked to my car slowly, each step light, as if shedding years with every click of my heels. I didn't smile. But inside, something stretched. Not pride, not triumph. Just relief. Like setting down a weight I'd forgotten I was carrying. The engine turned over, and I drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. 2 days later, I opened Facebook to a surprise. A GoFundMe link. There she was, Emily Harper, center frame, standing on the front steps of the house I paid for. Holding a sign. Save our dream home. The goal? $50,000. The total raised? 50. And even that was from her yoga instructor, who left a note that read, Namaste, but maybe try humility next time. I scrolled through the comments. Brutal, one said. Isn't this the same woman who called her mother-in-law chaos? Another read, sell your coat, sweetheart. Or maybe one of those wine memberships. I nearly spilled my coffee when I saw the top caption on a reposted screenshot. From class to collapse. Emily had officially become a meme. Her photo is side by side with her own quote about elegance and refinement. People were stitching videos reenacting her meltdown, complete with fake pearls and air kisses. I didn't share any of it. I didn't comment. I just watched it spread like wildfire. Quietly sipping my tea. They say revenge is best served cold. I wouldn't know. What I felt wasn't revenge. It was freedom, wearing a grin. And for once, it fit just right. The knock came just after sunset. 3 soft raps. Hesitant. I set my mug down on the kitchen counter and paused for a moment before walking to the door. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I opened it slowly. And there he was. Daniel. My son. His face was pale, drawn. His eyes were tired. He looked smaller somehow, like the boy I used to rock through fevers and thunderstorms. He didn't speak right away. Just stood there, with his hands deep in the pockets of his coat. Mom, he said finally. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He moved slowly, as if the house was unfamiliar. Maybe it was. He hadn't set foot inside since the day I co-signed the loan, since the day I gave him more than I could afford and asked for nothing but a place at the table. He sat at the kitchen table, hands folded tight, like in prayer. I stayed standing. He looked up at me, and I saw the truth before he said a word. The house is in foreclosure, he whispered. Emily's parents won't help. We're behind on everything. I nodded. I know. Small town. People talk. His mouth opened, then closed again. We didn't think it would go this far. I waited. Then he said it. We need help. Just enough to stop the process. A few months. I'll pay you back. I swear. I leaned against the counter. Daniel, you swore that 5 years ago. He winced, but didn't argue. I could see the shame in his eyes. Real. Heavy. And it hurt. Not because he asked again, but because I still loved him enough to consider it. Why are you really here? I asked. To save your home? Or your pride? He blinked fast. I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe more. I sat down across from him. I'm not angry, I said softly. But I'm done bleeding for people who don't see me. I love you, Daniel. I always will. But love isn't a blank check. He didn't answer, just nodded, slow and broken. When he stood, he looked older than I remembered. Like the weight of every bad decision was finally catching up to him. He walked to the door and paused. Merry Christmas, Mom. His voice cracked. I held my breath. Then I said, Merry Christmas, baby. He left without another word. The house fell quiet again. I didn't cry. I didn't pour wine. I just stood there, listening to the hum of the heater. It was the same old house, same creaky floorboards, same chipped tile. But something was different. This time, it felt like mine. Not because I'd won, not because they lost, but because I finally stopped giving away pieces of myself I never needed to lose.